When transporting Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives, you must route plan. If transporting Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 Class A or B explosives, you must have a written route plan and follow that plan. Carriers prepare the route plan in advance and give the driver a copy. You may plan the route yourself if you pick up the explosives at a location other than your employer's terminal. Write the plan out in advance. Keep a copy of it with you while transporting the explosives. Deliver shipments of explosives only to authorized persons or leave them in locked rooms designed for explosives storage. A driver who transports route-controlled radioactive material must have had special training by a carrier within the last training. The regulations require training and testing for all drivers involved in transporting hazardous materials. Your employer or designated representative is required to provide this training and testing. Hazardous materials employers are required to keep a record of that training on each employee as long as that employee is working with hazardous materials and for 90 days thereafter. The regulations require that hazardous materials employees be trained and tested at least once every 2 years. Shipping papers. The shipping paper. A shipping paper for hazardous materials must include page numbers if the shipping paper has more than one page. The first page must tell the total number of pages, for example, page 1 of 4. A proper shipping description for each hazardous material. A shipper's certification, signed by the shipper saying they prepared the shipment according to the rules. To find out if a shipment includes a hazardous material, you should recognizing hazardous materials. Learn to recognize shipments of hazardous materials. To find out if the shipment includes hazardous materials, look at the shipping paper. Does it have an entry with the proper shipping name, hazard class, and identification number? A highlighted entry, or one with the X or RQ in the hazardous material column. And here are some other clues suggesting hazardous materials. What business is the shipper in? Paint dealer, chemical supply, scientific supply house, pest control or agricultural supply, explosives, munitions, or fireworks dealer. Are there tanks with diamond labels or placards on the premises? What type of package is being shipped? Cylinders or drums are often used for hazardous material shipments. Is a hazard class label, proper shipping name, or identification number on the package? And are there any handling precautions? The Chemical Transportation Emergency Center. Chemtrec. The Chemical Transportation Emergency Center in Washington also has a 24-hour toll-free line. Chemtrec was created to provide emergency personnel with technical information about the physical properties of hazardous materials. The National Response Center and Chemtrec are in close communication. If you call either one, they will tell the other about the problem when appropriate. The shipper of hazardous wastes. When shipping waste, the shipper of hazardous waste must put the word waste before the proper shipping name of the material on the shipping paper. Carriers must give each driver who transports explosives 1.1 or 1.2 papers for Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 Class A or B explosives. A carrier must give each driver transporting Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 Class A or B explosives a copy of Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, Part 397. The carrier must also give written instruction on what to do if delayed or in an accident. The written instructions must include the names and telephone numbers of people to contact, including carrier agents or shippers, the nature of the explosives transported, the precautions to take in emergencies such as fires, accidents, or leaks. Drivers must sign a receipt for these documents. You must be familiar with and have in your possession while driving the shipping papers, written emergency instructions, written route plan, and a copy of the FMCSR Part 397. When fueling a placarded vehicle, someone must always be refuel with engine off. Turn off your engine before fueling a motor vehicle containing hazardous material. Someone must always be at the nozzle, controlling fuel flow. If you have a hazardous materials fire on the road, you should. If you suspect that there is a cargo fire in your trailer and the cargo doors are hot, you should. Fires. You might have to control minor truck fires on the road. However, unless you have the training and equipment to do so safely, don't fight hazardous material fires. Dealing with hazardous material fires requires special training and protective gear. When you discover a fire, send for help. You may use the fire extinguisher to keep the minor truck fires from spreading to the cargo before firefighters arrive. Feel the trailer doors to see if they're hot before opening them. If hot, you may have a cargo fire and should not open the doors. Opening doors lets air in and makes the fire flare up. Without air, many fires only smolder until firemen arrive, doing less damage. If your cargo is already on fire, it is not safe to fight the fire. Keep the shipping papers with you to give to emergency personnel as soon as they arrive. Warn other people of the danger and keep them away. The hazardous materials regulations are found in parts of Title 49 of the Code of Federal Regulations. HMR. The hazardous materials regulations are found in parts 171-180 of Title 49 of the Code of Federal Regulations. The common reference for these regulations is 49 CFR 171-180. Hazardous materials employers are required to keep a record of that training on each employee as long as that employee is working with hazardous materials and for days of thereafter. Training record. The regulations require training and testing for all drivers involved in transporting hazardous materials. Your employer or a designated representative is required to provide this training and testing. Hazardous materials employers are required to keep a record of that training on each employee as long as that employee is working with hazardous materials and for 90 days thereafter. The regulations require that hazardous materials employees be trained and tested at least once every 2 years. Shippers package in order to the material. Containment rules are rules that instruct the driver in Hazardous materials. Contain the material. Transporting hazardous material can be risky. The regulations are intended to protect you, those around you, and the environment. They tell shippers how to package the material safely and drivers how to load, transport, and unload the material. These are called containment rules.